Monsieur Anber.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I'm ready to go. I made my tea and I'm ready to go, Mr. Cassava. How are you, sir?
Yeah, the tea is usually the key to knowing that the night is going to be starting out. The podcast here, calling Russ Anber, another edition on YouTube. We appreciate everybody who tunes in, whether it's via Twitter, Instagram, or of course social media, any platform. We enjoy it, and we're going to have some interesting wrinkles in effect in the next few weeks. So, Russ, everything okay on your end?
Yes, I've made an executive decision, by the way, on the show.
Go ahead. It's your name, right? It's calling Russ Anber, so you get to make the decision.
Abel Sanchez was on, and we're going to pay him with In-N-Out burgers, right? So we owe him In-N-Out burgers. And then I realized that the mugs are under, popular demand. So I figure it would be a nice gesture to offer these to our guests when they appear on the show. They get a nice rival coffee mug. So our next guest will be the first recipient of it officially, but retroactively, the other guests will get theirs as well. So if you're watching, you'll get yours. Don't panic. You'll get yours.
Yeah, and the reason why you reference the next guest, somebody you know well and somebody I've been following for years. There's a lot of fights that are happening now. It's getting back to being a busy time where week in and week out, we get to watch some good fights. That was the case last weekend with Joseph Diaz and Rakhimov in a draw that we'll get to. We had Richard Comey come back and have a big-time knockout win. So there's action going on, and there's going to be some action this weekend. So Mike Coppinger, who's been, of course, a reporter for many years in boxing, also now an insider for The Athletic, does great work on his own show as well, the Cop and Pug Show, Lance Pugmire being his co-host, formerly of the LA Times, both now with The Athletic. And I think, Mike, where did you meet Mike or talk to Mike originally, Russ?
This is why I want to say one of the reasons why I hold Mike in high regard. And we've had our arguments over the years, discussing and debating, fights and whatnot. But I first met him when he came to Montreal to do the Jean Pascal fight. And I believe it was the Dawson fight. And he asked to speak to me and treated me with the utmost respect. And he was, coming into Montreal, coming into a Jean Pascal's place. And, he showed his passion for the sport and gave it, said this, your guy got a shot, and I realized that he was treating us fairly and gave him the interviews, and we've been friends since. We've debated over fighters, but we've been friends since.
And Mike is right there, as we can see him now. Mike, so do you collaborate this story here? Is this Russ accurate?
Yeah. I was actually in Montreal studying abroad. Well, not abroad, but studying foreign language. I needed the one foreign language class to graduate college. I was going to college in DC area. And it just so happened that the Chad Dawson, Jean Pascal fight was the day after the program ended. So I stayed the extra day to do the fight. I freelanced it for USA Today, and that was the first time I ever got paid to cover boxing. So that was that. I was, graduate. That was my last, my first day after college, graduation, and now here I am 10 years later, I guess, or
and
11 years.
Usually, when an American reporter was coming up and covering these fights, they were focusing on the American fighters. And Mike went out of his way to say, what was this whole buzz about Jean Pascal taking on somebody like Dawson? And he talked to me about it and listened. And it was nice to have someone's ear and tell us what Jean was all about. And he took it all down, and the rest is history.
And that's 11 years ago this August, so when it's going to be. So time flies. I was at that event as well, Russ. I was in the dressing room. I remember it was a great night for Jean, winning that decision against Chad Dawson. And we know the rest for Jean having his career still being a title holder in the WBA, and we'll get to see what happens with him down the road. But Mike, there's a lot of stuff to cover, and that's why I brought you in, because I know you follow it maybe a bit more, even my friend Russ, who loves the history of it. But week in and week out, sometimes I know he won't necessarily follow all the news. So we wanted to bring somebody here who's going to give us all the accurate stuff that's going on. And I wanted to get your take, Russ. I know you've seen the fight, and also you have a take on Jojo Diaz at the scales, who misses weight. But Mike, overall for Jojo, losing the scales, having a draw against a tough Rakhimov, would you think this? What was it like your takeaway from that fight and overall his weekend based on the weight issue and then his performance inside the ring?
Yeah, I was actually ringside in Indio, California for the fight. That was the first fight I've covered this year. And it was a really good fight, actually. I think that kind of got lost in the shuffle of the weight and everything. It was a really good fight, fought at two good fighters, tactical fight too. Like the guys weren't just swinging away, but it was really exciting. I thought Diaz won the fight. I had it 15-13. No problem with the draw. I thought the judges did a great job. But I think Rakhimov's definitely a good fighter. That was my first time watching him live. And, he's definitely tough. He comes forward. He applies a lot of pressure. He's strong. I thought Diaz was the much cleaner puncher. He landed a lot of really flush overhand lefts. And it seemed like the judges were maybe scoring a bit more for the superior activity of Rakhimov.
Mike, your thoughts on, I mean, I know it's not, you're not talking about 3 decades that you've been in this sport, but is there an epidemic now of fighters not making weight? It just seems to be so much more commonplace now, and you're getting a day before to make it. You know what I mean? Like, what is the problem? And a young kid, like, it's not like he's an old veteran who can't make the weight anymore, who's been making the weight for 10 years and can't do it anymore. I mean, Hopkins made it all those years as a middleweight. What is it that these young guys can't make weight?
Yeah, the issue is just that these guys, a lot of them gain way too much weight in between fights. Some of these guys are gaining 30, 35 pounds in between fights, and, it's percentage based. Some of these guys that are gaining 35 pounds are 126 pounders, 135 pounders. I think a lot of that, I would say, is due to the inactivity. I mean, back in the day, guys were fighting 4, 5, 6 times a year, at least 3. Jo Diaz fought in January of last year, was trying to fight Farmer in the rematch first, and then trying to fight Rakhimov, and it kept getting pushed back, pandemic. But it's not just the pandemic. We're seeing it even without the pandemic. Guys aren't fighting enough. But I want to say that for anyone who doesn't know, it's not the fighters. They want to fight more often. It's the promoters that say we don't have the money or we don't have the dates, and they're just finding excuses because these fights are expensive now.
Right. But regarding the weight though as well, Russ, there's something you wanted to bring up about the fact that he got fined 20% of his purse, and fighters, that's been kind of commonplace to try to have an incentive to make weight. So he has like a $500,000 purse. He gets fined 20% of it, but part of it went also to the commission. I think this is something you wanted to bring up, or what exactly happened, or Mike maybe can clarify what exactly was the penalty for JoJo missing weight.
Well, I know the rule. I know that the California State Athletic rule is that you get fined 20%. Montreal, they fine you 15%, and your purse goes to the opponent, which at least makes sense. The 15% that they fine you is compensation for the opponent not making weight. California charges you 20%, but then only suddenly becomes a new manager of the fighter, gives the opponent only 10%, and they put 10% in their pocket from the fine, which I don't know how suddenly they get involved in the deal. Am I wrong, Mike?
I mean, this is America, Russ. I mean, we don't have universal health. We don't have universal health care, and we pay a lot of taxes. We get taxed by in our paychecks, and then we get taxed again by the state, and then we get taxed again if we want to buy something at the store.
So do we.
If I want to run a stop sign, Russ, guess what? The government gets the money. Why does the government get the money? Why doesn't it go to some better cause? I don't know.
Well, the government gets the money because it's on their road and it's their law, and they get the money,
Come
right?
on, no. Is it really hurting them?
I'm sorry?
Are they really being impacted if I blow a stop sign? They need money from me.
No, it's a form of tax, obviously. It's just a way of
getting
exactly.
Money from there you go. There's another form of tax
but how do you become the partner? The fighter is the one who has to get in the ring to fight.
I don't think it's fair. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that it doesn't make any more sense than the stop sign to me. I think it's all nonsense. And to clarify Matt's point on JoJo, he absolutely did try to make the weight. He told me, I spoke to him today, actually. He said, look, I really did not want to lose that title. I lost a lot of money and I lost the title. And I tried to make the weight. I just simply gained too much weight in between fights. And he goes, but look, I was in shape. And I agree he was in shape. I think a lot of people confuse things. You can be in shape and still miss weight. And you could also be in bad shape and make weight.
Of course.
And he went a hard 12 rounds. He was strong down the stretch. I've seen people say, oh, maybe he was strong down the stretch because he didn't have to make weight. But that's not what happens. JoJo told me that the day of the fight, the morning of the fight, he took the hot bath. He wasn't sweating. That he ran for 40 minutes, no sweat at all. And that he did another hour workout. I believe it was jump rope or shadow boxing. Sorry. He shadow boxed for about an hour. He said he didn't sweat one bit. There was no more water weight to lose. His body just said, shut down. he tried to make the weight, but he did take full responsibility, he said, for not starting to lose the weight earlier and staying in shape in between fights. He told me he's going to go for a run next week, start running already. And look, he's been going through a bad situation with his managers. He sued his managers, he says, have been taking advantage of him. He had his first newborn, his first kid came in November. So he's not making excuses, but between not fighting since January, he let his weight get too high, and that's what happens. But I don't think he was trying to gain any kind of advantage.
Oh,
he
no,
wanted that title.
I don't believe that for a second. The whole business about making weight, it's not only the day before the weigh-in that you make weight. So like, a week out before the weigh-in, oh my God, I'm too high. Like I'm not on this, the math works. The numbers don't lie. I'm not on this a week before. So a week before you're not going to be on weight.
One quick point I want to make, and it's funny, right? Heavyweights don't have to make weight, right? But it's funny. So I was in Saudi Arabia for the Andy Ruiz-Joshua rematch. I got there supposed to get there on a Sunday, I think, but my plane got delayed and everything. I had to end up staying in Germany for a day and got there a day later. And I'm there Monday. And it's funny because when I go to the weigh-in, I see Ruiz, right? And maybe everyone's like, oh, maybe he's he weighed in with a shirt on. Everyone's saying maybe he had clothes on. That's why he's heavy. I spoke to somebody and they said that Ruiz went to the gym once the entire time he was there. And I said, wait, one time, 2 weeks? He was there for 2 weeks. Ruiz went to the gym, they said once. And then I said, are you sure? And I said, well, there's not many gyms. And this is the person that knew his schedule. And that was crazy to me because I think at least to your point about a week out, you probably say, oh shit, I better start going into overdrive. But Andy Ruiz must have messed around the entire camp, and then he got there for 2 weeks more to go in Saudi Arabia and still didn't do anything about it.
Well, that's credit to your point. Like you said, just because you're a pound over the weight class doesn't mean you're not in shape. You're absolutely right. And you could make weight and not be in shape. You're absolutely right. So I don't disagree with that.
Russ, to your point about the weight and Mike saying the fighters are getting too much weight in between fights, isn't that something also as you enter training camp for trainers, it's problematic at times where you can't prepare the way you necessarily want to prepare because most of the battle is now about making weight instead of focusing more on strategy?
Of course, that's the problem. Guys, it seems to me the mentality now is we're going into camp and part of camp is now losing the 30 pounds overweight that you are. And this happened, I can speak from experience on this with David Lemieux, who was 22 pounds overweight, 30 days outside of his meeting with Marco Antonio Rubio. And he had to actually come in the gym and sweat weight off just to make the WBC 30-day weigh-in. But when he came in, he was way overweight that day to make the 30-day weigh-in. So we knew that he wasn't going to, he gained too much weight. When you go to camp, you're supposed to be near your weight. You're 10, 12, 15 pounds out from your weight. That's okay. You have 8-week camp. You're good. But these guys are coming in 30 pounds overweight. You're spending half your camp losing weight and not focusing on training and fighting and getting good. That's my belief. But apparently, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about because everybody does weight loss, these crazy weight cuts. They're a week before the fight. They're 15 pounds overweight. Oh, no problem. Drink more water. We're going to dry you out. We're going to squeeze it all out of you. And, these new methods of taking it off. I don't know. I don't get it.
And Mike, I don't know if if you've heard or anything about this, but I think like MMA kind of embraced this, like what you're saying, Russ, of losing this water weight, really losing a lot of weight in a short amount of time because they think that when they do rehydrate, it's going to have the most benefit possible than gradually. I don't know if, Mike, you've had a chance to talk to different fighters or trainers as to what's their approach, but it seems to me many of the successful fighters the recent years, whether it's Pacquiao, Mayweather's, they stay close to the fighting weight and they don't do this huge dehydration to then rehydrate and have 15, 20 pounds over the fighting weight the night of the fight.
Yeah, I think the best fighters stay in shape year round. And look, Andre Ward never gained much weight. Bernard Hopkins, like you said, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. I think that's the best road to success. And I think the promoters need to help these fighters out by both by keeping them sharp and having them fight a lot. Fighting a lot does so many good things for you. It keeps you in the public eye. It makes you better, right? Because you're sharpening your tools. And also it's easier to stay in shape. You're always in camp. or maybe you're off for a few weeks and you go back to camp. I think that's what we need more of. And that's why I love to see what Canelo is doing right now. He fights in mid-December against Callum Smith. Now he's fighting next week against Avni Yildirim. He's going to fight again May 8th against Billy Joe Saunders. He'll fight in September, probably against Caleb Plant. Maybe he'll fight again in December even. But he's the number one star in the sport by a mile. He's the bounce pound king. I love to see him setting the example. Let's see more of that.
But Canelo, though, generates money all fights he fights. Maybe the promoters, you kind of, Mike, were saying the promoters are saying they don't have enough money to have this activity level for their fighters. And maybe there's some truth to that. If the COVID situation without the fans in the stands, a fighter has millions of dollars requests, you're not buying. You think there's ways to get it done where they can still find a way to pay the fighters what they deserve?
Yeah, I'm not buying it at all because I know how much money these networks give to these promoters, and I know how many dates they have, and I see how big their rosters are. I think the rosters are too big. I like what the UFC does. You know, not everyone needs to be signed. You know, instead of having 20 guys fight, in town, even. I'm not going to do the math, but basically what I'm saying is, look, you have a big stable. You're top rank. Top rank has 25 to 27 U.S. dates a year. They get paid $84 million from ESPN to do those dates. They have more than enough dates to take their, top 20 or top 15 guys and have them fight in 3 main events a year. Easily. Enough money, enough dates. Same for PBC.
Well, in the case of Jojo Diaz, just to get back here and close on this point, because in the fight ended up being a very good fight. He looked strong, though. He looked big, of course, bigger than Rakhimov. Could Jojo Diaz think about moving at 135 where there's more money fights to be made? Or when you talk to him, do you think he's going back to 130?
He said he's absolutely staying at 130, that he can easily make the weight, that it was his mistake. And he said that as a reference that he was, and Russ can talk to this. He said, look, as proof that I was in shape, I didn't blow up in weight. He said he made the 140 the next morning. That was, I don't understand the science behind that. Russ would, but he said he wants Gervonta Davis next. Whether he gets Gervonta Davis or not, it's an absolutely loaded weight class. I mean, you have Miguel Burchell versus Oscar Valdez on Saturday on ESPN in the U.S. We have Jamel Herring against Carl Frampton, going to be in late March, early April in Dubai. We have Shakur Stevenson, who might be the most talented guy in the division. We said Gervonta Davis. So, Chris Colbert, who I think is a really good fighter. So I think he'll be great there.
I'd like to make mention to something that I've had the luxury, leaving heavyweights out of it. I've had the luxury of having been in camp with some great fighters and some of the best fighters in boxing today, whether it be Jean-Pascal, Beterbiev, Usyk, Lomachenko. I've never seen any of them deal with these kinds of massive weight cuts. And, look, I mean, I remember watching Usyk come down to cruiserweight, and we were in camp, and I'm seeing his weight, and it's coming down little by little, pound a day. It's coming off, nicely. He's within the range. There's no massive cuts, and he's eating well, and it's coming off. So there is a certain discipline that has to be maintained in making the weight. I know it's an ugly part of the sport. It's a tough part of the sport, but the guys think they have it tough today. Imagine all these fighters if they would have had to do that on the same day, noon weigh-in, the day you fight. Guys don't even want to give interviews today, the day of the fight. You'd have to go on and do a weigh-in the day of a fight.
Yeah, it's a great point, Russ. But I mean, I think those days are gone. Although they're still in Ontario, here in Canada, Mike. I don't know if you know this, but they have same-day weigh-ins, and there's a few places I think in the world
that
do. But it's extremely rare. But Russ, also, if they did that, it would change the entire landscape. There wasn't 17 weight divisions back in the same day weigh-ins as well.
Look, I understand why it's done. I get it. And I'm not bitching against it. I'm just saying that the rules have changed. It's a safety measure. It's allowing for rehydration because unfortunately we have to protect the boxers from themselves. We have to protect them from their managers and the promoters who are forcing them to make weight. So if they're forcing them to do it, or if they're not disciplined and they do finally make the weight and they're carried to the scale and they get on the scale for 5 seconds and make 130 pounds, well, then they then have 36 hours to put it back on. So I get it. It's okay. And I know it has to be done for the safety, but I agree with Mike that boxers need to be kept busy, that they need to be in the gym, that weight has to be monitored, and we won't get this. Well, you mentioned something, Mike, I'd like to address, and maybe I'm off topic, but did you end up seeing the Warrington fight?
I did not see the entire Warrington fight because I was actually at the Golden Boy fight as it was going on. I have to go back and watch it. Thanks for the reminder. I did watch rounds 4 and rounds 9. The round 4 was the knockdown round, and then round 9. And it was apparent just watching that round 4 that the fight should have been stopped and would have been stopped if it was Lara, in my opinion.
Oh, well, that's always the case, right? That's of course it would have been, that's that. But there was a tweet that was released today from the British Boxing Board of Control, Robin Smith, saying that he spoke to Howard Foster, the referee. Foster said Warrington's eyes were clear, that he responded to his questions, and that's why he let it continue. Okay, there was 20 seconds left to go in the round. He barely survived it. Maybe Foster was aware of how much time is left in the round. And I know sometimes we can get on referees when a corner is not in a position to stop a fight, and a referee is right there, and a fighter is taking abuse and getting pounded, and he's getting his head banged around, and we say, why didn't the referee move in and stop it? He should have moved in. He moved in too late, and you can blame the referee. But in this case, the kid goes back to his corner. His father's in his corner, and he lets him out round after round. So I'm just wondering, where did this narrative come from that all of a sudden the referee's the bad guy? He didn't stop the fight in the 4th round, Well, okay, but the corner could have stopped at any time between the 4th and the 9th. Why are you blaming the referee? You'd have been blaming the referee if he stopped it too soon. He gave you an advantage gave you a chance to get back in the fight. You're undefeated. He gives you a chance, and we're pissing all over the referee in my opinion, in this case, for no reason, because the corner could have done their job if they thought they should get him out of there.
I hate to agree with you too much, Russ, but I was actually going to make this point. I was actually going to make this point before you did it. I do think the referees should let the fights go as long as possible, because the corner knows the fighter better than anyone, and the corner should be the one that has the protective instinct for the fighter. Doctor too. I think that needs to be brought back more. The doctor can stop the fight. Obviously, the referee can stop the fight, but I would like to see it left more to the doctor or the corner.
But do you think the father-son dynamic plays a factor? Because I think in the history of boxing, it's kind of hit or miss. You see Enzo Calzaghe with Joe, you see Teofimo Lopez and his father, the success they've had, and then you see other father-son combinations that end up not working out, or they end up fighting. Like the father sees himself through his son in the ring, right, and doesn't want to throw in the towel at any time. And eventually, maybe there's a break, and later in the career, maybe when it's too late, the son ends up moving with a trainer who's more neutral and it doesn't train with his father, Shane Mosley. That happened at one point as well. Do you think that has any say in it, Russ, for your experience of do you think the father-son dynamic played a role in this?
Look, I mean, I saw Miguel Cotto's father let him take a vicious beating, against Pacquiao, a vicious beating. So yes, that to me, that is a problem, but you can't make a blanket statement that it's all fathers that are doing this. Where I'll speak to what Mike said about the doctor. No referee or ever argues with a doctor about stopping a fight. Anyways, the doctor never says, I'm stopping the fight. And the referee says, no, you're not. I say it's going on. And to me, the only time the doctor or the
That actually has happened, Russ.
Has it?
I'm trying to remember the fight. I think it was.
Well, there's a Yuri Foreman Miguel Cotto fight when the towel was thrown.
That was the corner. That wasn't the doctor.
No, it wasn't. It was the towel from the corner, and the referee said no. He's still fighting.
Yeah,
Arthur McCarthy Jr. Yuri Foreman. That was classic.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was the doctor and the corner can play a massive role in stopping the fight, especially at the round's end, or even if they want to throw it in while the guy gets dropped. No, like when I stopped Otis, he got dropped, he got up, but I walked in and stopped the fight. That was it. But the only time a referee really you can blame is if a guy he's up against the ropes, he's getting hit, bang, bang. Okay, now move in, because the corner can't jump into the ring to stop the fight, to save their fighter. That's when you need the referee to jump in and do his thing. But I just feel in this case, while there's a lot of cases that refs, we can give them heck for what they do. I think in this case, you're right what you said, Mike. If it would have been the other way around, boom, they're stopping that fight right away. But, I think you want a referee to give the benefit of the doubt to a fighter. There's 20 seconds left to go in the round. You get him back to the corner. Now it's in the corner's hands of letting the guy come out. And once they let him out, you've been absolved. It's almost that you've been absolved because the people responsible for that fighter have seen fit to let him come back out. Anyways, I think we went off topic on that, but I just wanted to see if you saw.
No, and to Matt's point, though, I think he has a good point about the father-son dynamic and all that. I think it's checks and balances. There's should be the doctor, the corner, and the ref all acting in concert, and hopefully they do the right thing and no one gets hurt, and also they don't stop the fight too soon. And we saw this on center stage a year ago, right? With Deontay Wilder used to be in his camp, and Mark Breland's, and I thought Breland did the right thing. I thought it was apparent that Wilder was out of the fight. He was taking an unnecessary beating. But this is what happens now. I understand why Wilder's mad at Breland, even if others don't, and even if Wilder has no reason to. It's an emotional game, and in his head, he probably was going to come back. I get it.
Great, that's fine, and I get that too. But I don't think it merits you firing the guy. You fired one of the most liked people in all of boxing. Forget about his resume as a fighter, but as a personality, as someone who's been with you, you fired one of the most liked people in boxing because he did his job in protecting you. So,
Yeah, no, look, I'm not saying merits. I'm just saying that I understand the motive. I understand the emotion behind it.
Of course.
I get that. I get what, I think that losing a fight like that and getting that kind of beating can be almost like a traumatic experience. It's probably, who knows what he was going through or what he's still going through.
Hell yeah.
And not only that, the fighter has the trainers are doing in a sense a favor to the fighter also mentally for his confidence by saying he can always state, it wasn't me who stopped it. It wasn't me who went down. I didn't quit. The corner did it, right? So you kind of have, I think, also not this excuse in a sense, but you have another justification to say, hey, I was still going to fight. I was still on my feet. It's the corner who made that decision. So sometimes they should look at it that way, where the trainer is helping the fighter save face in a sense with the media and the aftermath of a tough loss. And while we're on the topic of Deontay, I know we don't have too much time left with you, Mike, but Deontay, we talked a little bit about me and Russ last week's show. He's again this week, though, for the first time, I found kind of embrace the fact that maybe that he will fight somebody other than Fury, and he's willing to maybe make a comeback besides these bizarre Instagram piano video he made. But short of that, it looks like, do you think Deontay is going to come back against somebody other than Fury next because he realizes that immediate rematch isn't happening?
Well, he doesn't have much of a choice. I do feel for him. He has a rematch clause, but I don't particularly want to see the rematch right now, maybe in a year or so. While Fury and Joshua is going to happen, it's going to happen twice this year. Deontay Wilder is going to move on. Yes, 2-fight deal, Fury Joshua, when it gets done. It'll be similar to the structure of the Fury Wilder deal, 60-40 to the winner. 60-40 to the winner in the second fight. Of course, we never got that Fury Wilder second fight, but Wilder's going to move on, and I'm sure we'll see him fight someone easy in the first fight, maybe a Charles Martin type. I've heard that name thrown around. And then what I think is interesting is I would absolutely love, maybe put it at number one on my list of fights I want to see that haven't been made yet. Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is just
absolutely,
it's an incredible fight. Stylistically, it's a absolute brawl. You have a guy who's the biggest puncher in the sport against a guy with way faster hands. Ruiz, the pressure fighter. Deontay's a guy that kind of likes to come forward too. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a real underdog look, right? It's a very similar look to the Joshua fight, where you have the Pillsbury Doughboy on one side and this Greek god on the other. Like this huge guy, and the Goliath, Samson wins. Like it's huge. It's a great fight. I'm sorry, but I wanted one more question, because something happened here which might not, I don't know if it's ever happened before in boxing, but it really is a shocking thing with the Warrington. You coming off Warrington, who has had a great year, beat some good guys, beat Frampton, has looked really, really good and has looked to figure on the world stage. And now there's people saying, well, he should retire, like he's done. He was badly injured. Like it's crazy, like how it's, his career has turned from undefeated world champion to now getting knocked out quite badly. And that doesn't happen all that often, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think as boxing fans, we all tend to overreact to good victories and overreact to bad losses too. I mean, Warrington was probably not as good as we built him out to be, but he's also not as bad as we're saying now after the Lara loss. He's a good fighter still. And that's the number one biggest problem with boxing, in my opinion, Russ. I know there's a million problems, too many titles, too many weight classes. But for me, number one is how we punish losses. Who cares about Deontay Wilder loss? Let's see him against Andy Ruiz, like you said. Who cares that Dillian White lost to Povetkin? If he even loses to Povetkin again, I still want to see him back. Like, the UFC gets this right. There is no punishment for losing. Just be in good fights. Give a good effort. and we want you back. The problem, though, is in boxing is the promoters continue to punish the fighters. They punish them with the purses, they punish them with the placement, and then managers in turn are scared.
And the media and fans do the same thing.
Yep,
Lomachenko went from #1 pound for pound to not even being in a discussion of the welterweight, the best lightweights in the world. Like, it's insane. Are you kidding me, man?
We're guilty. We're just as guilty as the media. You're right. To be fair, I had Lomachenko #3 on my list, and I think I have him number 8 now. So I didn't drop him too much. But you're right. We're talking about Haney, Teofimo, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta. No one's talking about Loma. But Loma is going to fight this summer, and I hear he's fighting Nakatani. I think he actually put an Instagram about it, but I heard that deal is getting closer. And I love that as a fight. Nakatani's awesome.
Sure.
I thought Nakatani, I remember you and I arguing about this in the bubble, actually, the day of the Lomachenko-Teofimo fight. And I told you, I thought Nakatani gave Teofimo a way tougher fight, and you didn't really see it the same way as me.
Yeah, it's he did give him a tough fight. So this is going to be a good measuring stick for Loma, because it seems that they don't believe Loma deserves, if you will, the rematch. I put that in quotation, deserves the rematch. But as a fight fan, when you consider how people had the fight scored, and I'm not talking about the judges, I'm talking about the real people in the know, how they had the fight scored, where you have a guy who gives away 6 rounds, and then, the horse is so far out ahead, and then the other one starts to come back and gets another one, and he's gaining on him. How can you not want to see round 13 of this? You know what I mean? Like, how do you not want to make this fight?
It's ridiculous that we're not talking about this rematch. And I get it.
Crazy.
Lomachenko did disrespect Lopez. I get it. He's an emotional guy. He's sensitive. All of us are. All athletes are. But I had that fight 15-13 for Lopez. I thought anyone who said it was 18-10 is outrageous. Like, that's 100%. Not even – like, it was a 15-13 fight. If you want to say it was 16-12 or even 16-12, fine. Lomachenko fought great, I thought, and I think it was rounds 8, 9, 10, and 11. I gave him 8, 9, 10, 11, and I think I gave him 2. But, Lomachenko is still one of the greatest fighters. I think that Nakatani fight is awesome. And Nakatani, he's so awkward, and, man, he's in great fights, too, that Verdejo bout.
Yeah.
And Felix Verdejo, speaking of a prospect who it didn't end up going exactly the way we thought over the last few years. And for Lopez, who was on ESPN last week, supporting Richard Comey, who wins in the lightweight division by 6-round knockout, which is kind of ironic that Lopez, who knocked Comey out for one of the titles, but he's there. He's supporting him. And when he was interviewed, Lopez, by Mark Kriegel, Lopez is stating that he wants to move up to junior welterweight after maybe this mandatory defense. So he's not even wanting to stick around at lightweight, which, Mike, I would love to hear your thoughts on why would Lopez fight his mandatory, a tough Kambosos, but, relatively unknown, if he plans on moving up to junior welterweight anyways and fighting the winner of Josh Taylor and the Ramirez fight.
Well, I think he wants to get a title defense in for sure. And I mean, I don't put too much credence into what he's saying. I do know that making 135 is hard for him. He's a big guy. He's probably more of a natural 40, in my opinion. But let's see. If he gets offered the right money, I'm sure he's going to fight a Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, or Gervonta Davis. But, I mean, that's a massive fight. I think Josh Taylor is going to beat Ramirez soundly. And Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez, I mean, both guys are great trash talkers. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's gonna be an awesome to see in the next few months. Okay, final point here, because you spoke to somebody who clearly losses in boxing don't really affect him. He always gets his opportunity. Steven Espinoza seems to love to have him on. Adrien Broner, who, again, weight issues. As few hours before we record this evening, Broner is now going to be fighting at welterweight in his comeback against Santiago. It was supposed to be 140. And we're always hearing about Adrien Broner's finally changed. This is the new and improved Adrien Broner. Are you buying it? You spoke to him this week, Mike. What would be your takeaway on this right now?
Look, going back to what we said about JoJo, could Broner be in shape? Absolutely, he could be. But we've just been down this road too many times before. It was like after Broner lost to Maidana. And by the way, that was a good loss, is what I would call a good loss, right? It was a great action fight. He showed a lot of grit and a lot of heart. No problem. Then he fights Sean Porter and puts up a complete dud other than the 12th round knockdown. All right, he's going to be better next time. Mikey Garcia, he barely throws a punch. He's going to be better next time. Manny Pacquiao doesn't throw a punch at all, gets beat up. And now we're hearing the same thing again. Look, I don't know, man. I mean, he's been down this road too many times with the changing of the weights. And it's just like he's enabled at every turn. Like Adrien Broner, I think it was against Adrian Granados, where it was 147, and then it was 140. Sorry, it was 140, then it was 147. And then there was some kind of shenanigans with the weight with Jesse Vargas as well. So Broner, I think he's fun. You know, he's a fun character. Boxing fans seem to like him. I just don't know how much he matters anymore. And he's certainly not going to change any minds with a fight against a guy no one knows in Santiago.
Mike is far nicer than I would be to answering that question. And I respect when fighters respect the game. You could be half the fighter that Adrien Broner is, and you give it your all in your training, in your presentation, in your demeanor, in your conduct, in your press conferences, in your fights, in the effort you put out. And I've got way more respect for you because you respect the sport instead of the most heinous crime that you could possibly commit in boxing, to me, is to have talent coming out of your ass. I mean, coming out of your head, and you disrespect it that much, where there are people who would die to give the talent you have, and they kill themselves to make it with grit and determination, and you don't want to. That, to me, is the ultimate insult in boxing.
Yeah, and you're right. Look, Broner is so talented. I still think he's really talented. I honestly was never high on Felix Verdejo. Like, I really wasn't. I just didn't. I saw him. I think I was ringside his fight against who was it? It was a couple of years ago in New York. Maybe it was I can't remember now, but it was a 12-round decision or 10-round decision. He just didn't look that good. I just saw him a couple. You know, he just seemed to go through the motions a little bit. But Broner, man, Broner as a prospect, I would watch that guy and I'd be like, holy shit. He's like knocking guys' heads off. He has flashy combinations and, you know, great counterpuncher, great instincts, actually, like a good boxing mind. He sees the openings. I think he could be so much more. I just don't know if it's too late.
I would say it's probably too late. You know, the body can only take so much, but you're right. He had that great defense. You know, he was right there. And, you know, you got to admit, Mayweather was high on him, right? At the start, Mayweather was high on him. I was in Cincinnati when he fought. You know, like this kid was something. You know, Mike Stafford invested a lot of time. And I know Mike, you know, it's breaking his heart because he's had him since he's a kid. And he knows just how talented he is. And it's a shame that it's not more. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. Matt?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, Mike, if you were at the Garden, was it the Brian Vasquez fight that you're referencing to? Or I don't know if that was the one or against Flores.
Let me look at my box rec here.
Might have been
I know it was at
Flores.
the theater.
Theater.
Brian Vasquez, he trying to remember which one it was.
All right. Well, then it might have been a few.
It was William Silva.
Before that,
William Silva.
Yeah,
okay.
So
yeah,
he
just
5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, Verdejo has like good hand speed, and you know, it just didn't seem like he had that. Like, you know what I'm saying? When you watch him, it just doesn't seem like there's anything special there. I don't even think he was a bad fighter, but just didn't have it.
I understand what Mike's saying, and I'll throw out. I mean, we've tried to do like a history lesson at the end of every one of the podcasts because it makes. And you got Matthew. You said it would create itself organically, and maybe it did. Who did Vasily Lomachenko beat in either his opening bout or second bout of the London Olympics? Felix Verdejo.
Now there we go. I'm learning stuff.
And you know what? Verdejo looked good in that fight. Like he tried against obviously a much more talented guy, but he tried. I called that fight up for TV in Canada, and I remember watching. I said because Verdejo prior to that had been in Canada for a training camp with the Puerto Rican team, and he had come by the store, met him. We met the coaches, the whole bit. So I had a special interest in watching him fight. And you know, Loma came into those Olympics supposedly with having already been signed for that World Series of Boxing, you know, where they were already signed. He already was considered like a pro going into the Olympics, you know. And I remember thinking, poor Verdejo, you know, he's going up against a guy that's already signed with AIBA, you know. This is going to be terrible, right? No matter what he does. But look, Loma was the better guy for sure, but Verdejo accounted himself very well in that fight. You know, he really did. And yeah. So that's,
and it's funny, Verdejo is actually being angled for a fight with Teofimo Lopez if he beat Nakatani. That was going to be the next fight. So that was what they were angling towards. And you have to assume if Lomachenko beat Lopez, it was going to be Lomachenko and Verdejo. And now here we are. They both lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe, Mike, I think we heard the dog in the background. That's the cue to end the show. It probably needs to go out. We've been very generous with your time. We appreciate you joining the show. For those of you who want to follow Mike Coppinger on Twitter, it's his name, so it's very easy. The Insider for The Athletic also does the Cup and Pug show, boxing show that drops every Tuesday. Lance Pugmire, formerly of the LA Times, both of them top of the insiders in the sport of boxing right now. So really enjoyed, Mike, your presence here, and I hope you did as well. And Russ, you're going to arrange the mug drop off, correct?
Yes, I'll take care of that, and maybe the delivery might even be done in person. You know, we'll see if we're going to be at a fight coming up soon. That you're not going to Moscow by any chance, are you? For Better Biev?
I will not be at the Better Biev, Better Biev Adam Danes fight, but I'm sure I'll see you soon. I think the next fight I'm probably going to is probably a fight in April. Maybe Devin Haney if he fights Jorge Linares. Or certainly Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo, I'll be at.
Well, listen, we'll take care of you, Mike, and allow me to, to echo Matt's sentiments. Thanks for taking the time. It's always fun to talk to you. It's even more fun to argue with you. So I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Thank you so much, guys, and see you all soon.
Take care, Mike.
Take care,
Matt.
Matt.
Take care, everybody.
Good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.